The financial markets closed out this week with yet another head-spinning day, with one of the main indexes, the S&P 500, plunging for almost 3 hours into bear market territory, signifying a drop of 20% or more from its prior record. For its part, the Dow Jones Industrial Average lost ground for the 8th straight week, the first time that's happened in decades.
Alarm outside headquarters of Silicon Valley Bank in Santa Clara, California today.
They just came out and told us that the bank is shut down.
SVB, the 16th largest bank in the U.S. with $175 billion in deposits, is now the biggest American bank to fail since the 2008 financial crisis.
Good afternoon. Before discussing today's meeting, let me briefly address recent developments in the banking sector. In the past 2 weeks, serious difficulties at a small number of banks have emerged. History has shown that isolated banking problems, if left unaddressed, can undermine confidence in healthy banks and threaten the ability of the banking system as a whole to play its vital role in supporting the savings and credit needs of households and businesses.
Hi, welcome to the first episode of OneHedges. During November 2021, we said that the US economy was headed for a recession and the S&P 500 towards the bear market. Fast forward to today, the S&P 500 is in a bear market. We've had a housing downturn, we've had a second and third largest banking failures in US history, and the US economy is on the verge of a recession. How did we get to this point, and what's the outlook for the future? Join us today in our first episode as we analyze the markets and position ourselves for success. As we look back to 2021, what led us to believe that the economy was headed for a downturn and the S&P 500 for a bear market? Here at OneHedges, we look at macroeconomics to gauge market sentiment and direction. Financial markets are deeply interconnected with the economy at large. Financial markets are also forward-looking. When you invest in the stock market, you invest with the idea that your investment will appreciate. Your investment will appreciate as the economy expands and GDP grows, or else nothing will happen. If the economy isn't doing well in 6 to 12 months, then the stock market won't be doing well either. If the fate of our investments depend on the health of the economy at large, how do we then gauge the health of the US economy? One way to gauge the health of the economy is to look at US manufacturing and consumers. US manufacturing and consumers are the two pillars of a healthy economy. Manufacturing produces the items that the consumers use in their everyday lives. One way to assess the US manufacturing industry is to look at the ISM PMIs. The ISM PMIs, or the Purchasing Managers' Indices, are a survey of questions given to 400 multinational US companies. The respondents are asked about their economic outlook. Basically, over 400 multinational companies are asked about their economic outlook. Values above 50 indicate economic growth, values below 50 indicate economic contraction. It might seem like a trivial survey, but Wall Street keeps a close eye on the survey. Fund managers track the survey monthly for clues into the health of the economy. It's one of the leading economic indicators, meaning that the survey can predict changes in the GDP and the stock market 3 to 6 months in advance. As shown, both the GDP and the S&P 500 closely correlated with the survey. A declining manufacturing PMI is an ominous sign for the future growth restrictions in the economy. It is no surprise then that in November 2021, the index peaked and started declining. S&P 500 closely followed suit by peaking a few months later in March 2022 and entered bear market in the summer of 2022. What about the US consumer? The US consumer is the engine of the economy. Without the US consumer, there is no economy. We can track the US consumer by looking at the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index. Each month, at least 500 telephone interviews are conducted and they're asked 50 core questions. Once again, the consumers are asked about their economic outlook. It is astounding to know that only 500 interviewees are asked these questions, but the survey has a very strong positive correlation with the financial markets and can predict changes in the S&P 500 well in advance. We can use these two leading indicators to give us a sense into the health of the US economy. By using these leading indicators, we can gauge market sentiment and direction. Both of these indicators were in contraction territory with the COVID pandemic. They started rising and they peaked in November 2021. That was an ominous sign for the economy that we'll see future downturns. Turning to the markets today, it's a confusing picture. Bloomberg recently reported that the Nasdaq is back in bull market territory. Well, that's true. Technically, a 20% rise from the prior fall is bull market. But are we really in a bull market? The reality today is that the economy cannot sustain a bull market. Listen to this. $14 trillion was printed in the last 200 years. Half of that was printed in the last 2 years. Over 80% of US dollar in circulation was printed since the COVID pandemic. That's what's given rise to the inflation we have today. The stock market has basically not done anything since May of last year. It is moving sideways. There are concerns for a lost decade. And that's when the stock market does not make any higher highs and it just moves sideways. This isn't new. It happened in the .com and the 2008 Great Financial Crash. Nasdaq is outperforming the S&P 500 now. Mom and pop investors are rushing to the safety of the FANG stocks, which is the Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google, Amazon, thinking that those companies will bail them out. A rush to safety of these big tech companies happened in 2000 and 2008. The truth is, you won't be safe anywhere once recession takes over. The Fed injected liquidity into the system over the last 2 years since the COVID pandemic, helped fuel a rise in an all-asset bubble. Stock, car prices, home prices, they've all gone up. Take, for example, a home selling for $500,000 pre-pandemic in Austin, Texas, is now selling for over $2 million. Fed liquidity is directly tied with the S&P 500 performance, and you can look at that via various charts. It's almost a perfect correlation. Housing market is getting hit, but it's not getting hit hard enough. Case-Shiller reported 7 straight monthly declines in the housing market and a 5% drop, but that's still a far cry from an almost 30% slump in the 2008 financial crisis. Home prices are so unaffordable that a 20% drop today will only take the prices back to COVID levels. We've got recessionary conditions in the economy. The PMIs are declining, as we mentioned. The consumer sentiment is low. Mortgage applications have hit an all-time low because consumers are very bearish on the housing market. Labor market is holding up, but labor unemployment spikes don't happen until we're deep in a recession. Consumers are using their credit cards to fund their lives, and this cannot be sustained. Things might get much worse before they get better. That's it for today's episode. If you like the content in this video, please consider subscribing. Our aim at OneHedges is to provide data-driven content and information and to cut through the noise so that we can analyze the markets and position ourselves for success.